Hey there folks, I am the Mighty Plantain. Thanks for checking out this video. We're looking at coffee this time around. Seems to be the theme right here of the Harpoon Dunkin Donuts variety pack. Now we've seen Dunkin Pumpkin and Dunkin Coffee Porter before. Harpoon, paired up with Dunkin Donuts to release these officially licensed beers. We've seen other coffee infused beers with the Dunkin coloring and look to it, but not like an official partnership on the beers. So we've seen those two before. The Boston Kreme and the Jelly Donut IPA are both new to this pack. There was a coffee blonde at one point released under this banner. I never found it up here. By all accounts, it was a decent beer. I'm trying to think if there was another one out at some point, but it slips my mind. Just a quick reminder, folks, the Extra Life fundraiser is still going on. I'll put a link down below in the description for you to click on if you want to donate. Game day is November 7th, so I'll be playing video games for 24 hours straight in an effort to raise money for the Barbara Bush Children's Hospital right there in Portland, Maine. Extra Life actually does this every year as a fundraiser for the Children's Miracle Network hospitals, but I decided to put my donations directly towards the closest one to me. So, limited release Dunkin' Donuts coffees from Harpoon. I really like the fact that they have started putting the employee-owned up front on their logo. They've been employee-owned for a while, but you'll see it on the cans. They've actually put it right underneath the logo. I was looking, I guess they didn't put it on the box itself. So, 4 styles, 3 of each. We're going to start off with the Dunkin Pumpkin. There we go. There's the employee-owned logo right on there underneath the Harpoon logo. Always nice to see that up front and center. That way you can support employee-owned businesses. So, like I was saying, we're going to start with the Dunkin Pumpkin. I'm going to do the Boston Kreme second before we do the Coffee Porter and then the Jelly Donut IPA. Now, my thought process on this is the Dunkin Pumpkin is probably going to be the least powerful flavor, being a pumpkin beer, even with coffee added. The Boston Kreme is listed as a stout. I'm putting it before the Coffee Porter, which might be a mistake, but I remember the Coffee Porter being a heavy porter with some very strong coffee notes. And I'm thinking if they're calling the Dunkin' Boston Kreme, it may be a stout, but if it's a cream stout, it might be a little lighter and less bitter. So I'm hoping that I'm right on that. And then, of course, the Jelly Donut IPA is coming last because that is going to have some coffee flavor. But it might not have coffee flavor. It might just be a jelly donut flavor. But anyway, the IPA, the bitterness of IPAs tends to overwhelm any other bitter flavors or other flavor profiles that you might have in your beer lineup. And that's a rookie mistake that a lot of places will make. They'll put all your beers light to dark. I think I've gone over this recently as well. But you don't want to go light to dark after you hit the IPAs. The IPAs should always be last because depending on how hoppy they are, they can overwhelm your palate. That's not to say that if you don't have like a darker beer that has a higher IBU than your IPA, because your IBU is your International Bitterness Units. Anyway, the darker beer should go after that if the IBUs are higher than... Anyway, I'm probably not telling you anything you don't already know if you're tuning into this channel in the first place. But anyway, beers should go light to dark, except in the case of IPAs, in which case they should be arranged based on the IBUs of whatever beers are before, after, or in between of them. I guess that makes sense. Higher IBUs are last. I'm just thinking over that, and I'm hoping it makes a lot of sense. I am completely sober right now, and I confused myself a little bit there, so hit me up in the comments or the email link down there if you need clarification. I'll be happy to try and sort that out when I'm not going off the cuff here. So, enough about that. Let's get started. Yes. Now, I have had the Dunkin Pumpkin more recently, so this is very familiar to me. Now, I believe I saw some sediment coming out. I'm thinking that was the case. But it is a very, very hazy beer, and I actually have some slightly orangish particulates floating on top of the head. So that you don't see that all the time. Once in a while you can find it in those really hazy beers with particulates in it. It's an interesting effect. But if you look at that, that is definitely a very hazy, somewhat orange beer down here where it's thinner, but up here where it's thicker, that looks like a pumpkin juice. I mean, I'm trying to think of a coffee term to compare it to, but that really does look like a very dark, liquefied pumpkin. It's pretty effervescent. Lots of pumpkin in the aroma, like pumpkin pulp, like when you just first cut the top off of one before hollowing it out. Slight tang on the back end, and little hints of coffee bitterness as well. And there's a bit of a tang up front when you first get it on the tongue. As it settles on the palate, it's a nice, strong mouthful of pumpkin. There's a lot of pumpkin in there. Maybe some hints of different spices, a little cinnamon, maybe nutmeg, who knows. Probably typical pumpkin pie spices. But that slight bit of tanginess is in there as well. But as it finishes and comes back in the aftertaste, there is this slight hint of coffee flavor. A nice, dark, roasty coffee flavor that just kind of settles on the palate afterwards. That's really nice. It's got a bit of a medium to medium light mouthfeel. It's actually a little lighter in mouthfeel than I was expecting based on the looks of it. I mean, that looks like a really thick beer. It's nice. Coffee and pumpkin going together really well with just a general beeriness. I'm trying to remember what I rated this the last time I had it, because tonight I'm feeling it, but that little hint of tanginess, whatever that is detracting from it a bit. I'm going to hit it tonight with a 3.5 out of 5. I think I might have done a 4 last time, but for some reason I'm focusing on that odd tanginess, and it's just putting me off a little bit. So 3.5 is still a pretty good rating. On a scale of 1 to 5, 2.5 is average. So 3.5 is putting it in a pretty above average beer. It's drinkable. It's going down pretty quick. It's good. It's a nice, good, solid pumpkin beer with some coffee in it, giving it a nice, varied and distinct flavor profile. It's not distinguishing itself from some of the other coffee and pumpkin beers that I've had. I think the pumpkin, I can't remember if it was espresso pumpkin, but anyway, the pumpkin from Southern Tier, I think, they just put out a coffee enhanced version of that just blew me away. So these guys have got some serious competition. Anyway, I'm running off at the mouth. It's a damn good beer. Tonight's 3.5 out of 5. I'm pretty sure it has scored higher before. Would never turn it down. I'm going to finish this one up a little bit faster than I should probably, and we're going to move on to the Boston Kreme. All right, next up, Boston Kreme. It's a stout. Also my favorite kind of donut. Well, one of my favorites. I know everywhere else in the country they call it custard filled, but fuck you, it's Boston Kreme. That was my horrible Bostonian accent. Needs work. Needs a lot of work. I think I sounded more like the mayor from The Simpsons. Maybe. I don't know. Anyway. Now that is a bit of a lighter colored stout as it's getting poured out. In the glass, though, it's fairly dark, but I am still seeing quite a bit of light coming through. It looked more like a really dark roast coffee than it does a stout, but when we put the light under it, there's not much coming through. So, lighter looking on the pour, but definitely a dark, heavy stout in the glass. Not seeing a lot of bubbles coming up through. Did not get a good head on that. I should have been a little more aggressive with the pour, but I was too busy watching what the beer looked like as it was coming out. Actually kind of a neutral aroma. I'm not getting much off of that. Now, it doesn't necessarily say that it actually has coffee in it. See, I would expect them all to have some kind of coffee. Oh, stout brewed with donuts, cocoa, natural flavors, and artificial colors. Huh. So there's not necessarily coffee in that. Interesting. But still, I'm not getting any sort of aromas. I'm not getting any roasty stout aromas. I'm not getting any hints of coffee. So again, it doesn't sound like there's actually any coffee in this one, but I'm definitely thinking I made the right choice in putting this ahead of the coffee porter then, because the coffee porter is going to have some bitterness. Bitterness. Wow. One beer in, I'm already slurring. Great. Anyway, the coffee porter is going to have some coffee bitterness that may have overwhelmed some of the other flavors. So, anyway, I lost my train of thought on the first segment when I was talking about the Dunkin Pumpkin, but I meant to mention I am cleansing with water in between beers, as I always do when I do the variety packs. It's just a way to, be as objective as possible on them. I was just noticing some of the... Wow, I am highly distractible tonight. I was just noticing some of the differences in colors on the can. Anyway, I'm going to shut up and drink the beer now. It's got a medium mouthfeel. It's not as heavy as it looks. It's very smooth, though. Up front, it was really easy going. Very smooth. And I'm definitely getting some chocolatey notes. It could just be my imagination, but there is a creamy texture to it. And there is a hint of sweetness that is vaguely reminiscent of the custard or cream in a Boston cream. I'm getting roasty notes in the aftertaste. Which is probably the roasted cocoa and the actual grains in the stout get nice and heavily roasted. It's almost reminiscent of a coffee bitterness in the aftertaste, but it's more roasty. More of a roasty bitterness than an actual coffee flavor. So the two are kind of overlapping a little bit, and I think based on the fact that I've got coffee on the brain right now, it's probably influencing that. But yeah, it's just a nice, chocolatey, smooth, creamy stout. Hint of sweetness to it. It's not bad. Not bad at all. easy drinking for a stout. I mean, these are all going down pretty fast. Wow, 2 so far are going down pretty fast. If I remember right, the coffee porter is going to be gone pretty quick too, because that was a good beer. Yeah, that's pretty much all I'm getting from it. Is a nice roasty, chocolatey stout, smooth, easy to drink, bit creamy in texture, a little bit of sweetness in the flavor. Does it taste like a Boston cream donut? No, but it's probably as close as you're going to get in a beer. Like I said, it's got that chocolatey, creamy, and slightly sweet flavor. I bet it would actually pair with a Boston cream very well, but I don't have a donut here, so been laying off the donuts lately. Had to. Anyway, this is another 3.5 out of 5. It's really good. It's really great. But it's just not quite getting up into that 4 category with anything that's hitting me with a really impressive or different flavor from some other beers that I've had before. But again, it's very easy drinking and it's good. Pardon. I mean, excuse me. There's 2 more of each of these, and I promised the lady Plantain, my wife, that I'd save her, 1 of each so she could check them out, because she's a big coffee fan, big Dunkin' fan. I'm in danger of having to break that promise tonight. We'll see. Like I said, they are going down pretty easy. Anyway, another 3.5 out of 5 for that one. And it is not long for this world. I'm going to finish it up, and we'll break out the coffee porter. All right, here we are with the coffee porter. Before I forget, quick shout out to Kyle M. for hitting me up on Facebook with a tag on this pack, literally as I was setting up the camera to do this review, asking if I'd reviewed it yet and checked it out. Love the fact that I got people looking out for this kind of stuff for me and stuff that might be interesting. So, Dunkin' Coffee Porter. I should have written. That's funny. The last one actually had a little description of the brew on it. This one does not. I guess maybe because it's just straightforward coffee porter, and we know what a coffee porter is. Maybe they just needed to explain the Boston cream name on it. I don't know. Anyway. That looks a lot like the last one in the pour. Actually got a little bit of a better head on it. So I'm always hesitant to be so aggressive with the pour on the cans. I just have way too many of them go over the edge of the glass on me. Anyway. Pardon. So it's got a little bit of a lighter look to it. That's actually darker than the Boston Cream Stout. Pardon. There's less light getting through the coffee porter than there was the Boston Cream Stout. Now, they both looked very similar on the pour, but resting in the glass, this is a darker beer. And that happens, based on the grain bill and what they've done with it and other additives. A porter can be darker than a stout. So, the head's actually darker too. I know I got a better head on this one than I did on the stout, but the bubbles have a darker shade of brown to them than that one did. So not necessarily an indicator that it's a better beer, but just observations, things I'm noticing. That definitely has a roasty, typical porter aroma. It's got a lighter roastiness, maybe a hint of nuttiness to it. And I am getting whiffs of coffee in there as well. Oof. If you get your nose right down in there, you definitely get the coffee on the back end. Another very smooth, medium to medium heavy mouthfeel. Roughly about the same as the stout in terms of mouthfeel. But slightly roasty, a little bit nutty up front. All coffee as it rests on the tongue. Maybe some hints of chocolate, slight bit of vanilla flavor in there, but heavily coffee. That's good. That's good. That's really good. I'm trying to remember when they originally released the coffee porter and what I might have rated it as back then, but you know what? Doesn't matter. You know, beer taste, any taste, is subjective, and it can change from time to time, which is why you'll see me do the same beer several times, especially in the Sam Adams seasonal packs, because they keep putting the same shit in them year after year, and I'll rate it differently just based on how I'm feeling that night. So whatever I rated this as before, it's sitting at a solid 4 tonight, 4 out of 5. It's just a really well put together coffee porter. Again, there's lots of other coffee porters out there, but I can't think of any way I would change this to make it better. It's just not blowing me away or getting me with that wow or that uniqueness that would push it up to a 4.5 or a 5. But it is the best coffee porter that a coffee porter could possibly be. So it's sitting at a 4. Really good. So I'm going to finish this one up. We're going to move on to that last one, that Jelly Donut IPA. That's got the potential to do a lot of different things. I've had some IPAs that are supposed to be sweet before. I've had some fruity IPAs. So we'll see what happens. Sometimes the combination of sweet and fruity, which you would expect from a jelly donut, doesn't mesh well with the bitterness that you get from the hops in an IPA. Other times they reach this magical combination of flavors that just impresses you with how well it works together because you wouldn't expect it. I mentioned Kyle M before. One of the people who saw his post that he tagged me in was like, jelly donuts and IPA, ugh, how does that work? Gross. I don't think that's not even close to being an exact quote. I don't think they used the word gross either, but just, in general, whoever it was, it made it pretty clear that it was nothing they were interested in even trying. And I get it. Like I said, it's not a flavor combination that you'd expect to work, but sometimes it does. Anyway, I'm going to finish this one up. All right, and we have come up to the apparently controversial Jelly Donut IPA. It says here, IPA brewed with donuts and raspberry puree with natural and artificial flavors and artificial colors added. So they actually put donuts in this one. Contains eggs, wheat, and soybean. So there are some allergens in there for folks who might have to worry about that. It's interesting, though, because the Boston Cream Stout, they didn't say anything about actually brewing donuts into it. And this one actually brewed the donuts in. I'm assuming it was some kind of, maybe they put them in the boil and then strained. I mean, at some point the donuts were actually strained out of this. It was either added to the fermentation and then strained or added to the boil and then strained. They don't say. But anyway, Yeah, brewed with donuts and raspberry puree. So I'm guessing there's no real jelly in this. They probably used the raspberry puree to get that raspberry flavor, and then the donuts were just used to add some breadiness to it. I'm guessing. I don't know. Ever since I started home brewing, I start thinking a little bit more about the actual brewing process and wondering how did they do that? Because at some point I might try and get a little crazy with my home brews. But we are probably years away from that. Let's just get the basics down first. Anyway, that's another hazy beer, but it's by far the lightest one in the pack. It's got a golden yellow color to it. Gets a little orange. Well, yeah. Maybe honey colored. Honey colored up there where it gets thicker. But that is definitely a hazy, hazy beer. So something tells me that however they got the donuts brewed in there, they did lend a lot of body to this. And a lot of doughiness. I'm going to expect something very bready. Might be setting myself up for failure there, but I'm expecting a lot of breadiness out of this. But it's a very nice color to the beer. I'm getting hops. Definitely getting a nose full of hops. But a tangy, fruity aroma as well. Raspberry is probably one of the better sweet fruit flavors to pair with a hoppy beer because raspberries have a bit of bitterness to them as well, which is going to blend more into the hoppy bitterness of the beer itself. Versus if you took something like a really sweet fruit, like pineapple even can blend with certain types of hops. Trying to think of a really sweet fruit that wouldn't necessarily mesh with the bitterness of hops that well, but honestly, for every one I'm coming up with, I'm thinking of a hoppy beer that has esters that would work well with that fruit because hops have become so differentiated in their flavor profiles. They're breeding new varieties every day. So anyway, I guess my original point is lost, but I'm going to say it again anyway. Raspberries have a slightly bitter, fruity flavor to them to begin with, so they're going to pair well with the bitterness of hops. So raspberries were probably a good choice. Anyway, I'm definitely getting a fruity berry aroma along with an overall hoppy bitterness. It's an interesting combination of aromas. As you can tell, I'm going to sit here and sniff this a little while longer. Because frankly, it smells fucking great. Alright. You guys are going to get bored if I keep doing that. Like you didn't get bored 10 minutes ago. I know. That last comment was more in reflection of the fact that I've been running off of the mouth and getting distracted and repeating myself quite a bit in this video. So I do apologize for that. Apparently I'm off my game a little bit tonight, but, you know. It's actually got a lighter mouthfeel than I was expecting based on how hazy it is. I'd actually even call it a light mouthfeel. Maybe light to medium light. There's actually a crispness to it that I wasn't expecting. But I am getting raspberry flavor, a little bit of doughiness, a little bit of breadiness to it. And then this odd bitterness in the finish. Now, I know I've hammered this point about the raspberries and how bitter a fruit raspberry is after you pass the sweetness, but it's definitely like eating raspberries. You're getting that bit of sweetness up front, and then a little bit of tanginess, slight bit of bitterness in the finish. But in this case, that same raspberry experience is combined with the bitterness of the hops to give it even more of a bitter punch in the finish. And again, it's got this doughy, bready flavor to it. I mean, that's definitely coming through. So whatever they did to get the donuts in here. It definitely comes through in the flavor. In the back of my mind now, yeah, I need to control that brain mouth filter isn't working. But I'm just wondering if the donuts were actually a part of the grain bill, if they were somehow used to provide food for the yeast to ferment the beer. I don't know. Does it matter? Probably not. What we're looking for is the flavor. It's a good beer. I mean, I don't taste jelly donut. It's not sweet enough to be an actual jelly donut flavor, but it's probably as close as you're ever going to get in a beer, especially an IPA. And getting, like I said before, that hoppy bitterness, pardon, to meld well with a particular fruit flavor is pretty tricky, and they've definitely accomplished that. That plus a bready flavor that I'm not used to getting from an IPA. I mean, I think I can't recall a particular one, but I think I've gotten it in an IPA before, that bready flavor, but I can't put my finger on it. So it's definitely a little different. Maybe not 100% unique, but it's pushing it into that 4.5 category for me. I'm putting this at a 4.5 out of 5. I'm not wowed, I'm not blown away, but it's as close as it can get to that experience. It's just a really well put together beer. I'm impressed by how they made the flavors work together. It's just plain good. That's hitting a 4.5 out of 5. Solidly. So, 2 3.5s, a 4, and a 4.5 out of 5. Pretty solid pack. One thing I will say about the Dunkin Dozen is it's also a great starter pack if you got some friends who aren't necessarily into craft beers. This is the way to go to get them into it. Coffee enthusiasts are going to love that coffee porter. Coffee lovers who like the pumpkin spice lattes are going to like the Dunkin Pumpkin. People who are into pumpkin stuff might like the Dunkin Pumpkin too. So, there's so many different angles you can take with this pack trying to introduce your friends who aren't into craft beer to craft beer. And even the Boston Kreme and that jelly donut IPA are a good way, hey, this is weird shit, you would never expect this to work together, try it, and maybe you can talk them into it. But anyway, it's a nice starter pack for people who might not be into the whole craft beer scene to check out something. But I think you got to start with coffee lovers to get them on board. Anyway, just an afterthought. For me, this is definitely a win. A total win. I would buy this again. I wish I could have found it in bottles around here, because I'm pretty sure I saw on the Harpoon site that they are putting it in bottles. But you know what? I didn't taste any metallic aftertaste. I didn't get any tinniness or anything. I don't think the cans are interfering with it at all. Breweries have gotten a lot better in the past few years with that. getting rid of the metallic taste that comes with the cans. I think Sam Adams started it with their wax line, specially designed cans, and everybody else has followed suit. Anyway, I'm loving it. I would definitely buy it again. I might actually buy it again before it leaves the stores around here, especially depending on how well it goes over tomorrow with the Lady Plantain, and she's going to have some guests over, so they'll probably all be swapping them around. So we'll see. But yeah, I personally would buy it again. It's a great pack of beers. But that's just what I have to say about it. Check it out. Then hit me up down below in the comments, email link. Love to hear what you have to say about this pack or any of the beers individually. While you're down there, don't forget to like and share the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, game day for Extra Life is on November 7th this year. I will post a link down there as well for you to donate. I'll be live streaming the entire 24 hours on YouTube. I know I usually stream on Twitch Saturday nights at midnight. For those of you few people who do tune in, sorry I haven't been on there lately. Saturday nights have been a little weird for me the last couple months, I think. I think it's been a couple months since I've been on. Anyway, I'm going to try and get back into it at some point just to at least get back into my game before I do the 24-hour live stream on November 7th. But, yeah. I think I'm done plugging my stuff. I think I'm done talking about this. You guys probably done listening to me. I mentioned before you got bored 10 minutes into the video because I've been rambling tonight. For those of you who have been listening, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.